And we are live. This is a really super exciting live stream for me. As you jump in, I want you to feel free. In fact, please do say something in the chat box. Tell me where you're from, who you are. This is super duper exciting. I want to explain to you why this is so exciting. This is a full length live for me going on YouTube. It's not the first live I've done on YouTube. If you look in the videos from this channel, you will see lots of lives on YouTube. What's exciting about this one, however, is what's happening on the back end. What do you mean what's happening on the back end? Well, what's happening on the back end is that this live is powered by a piece of software called OBS Studio. What's exciting about that, for those of you just tuning in, what's exciting about using OBS Studio is that it's going to allow some brand new kinds of videos on the channel. But before that, I'm just going to do a little bit of a tech check myself on my trusty smartphone here. I'm going to check that this live is going live, because it would be a waste of time if no one's watching it. So let's just have a look, see if I can check that this live is live. A great way to check it's live, by the way, is if anyone's there, give me a wave, say something. Yes, we are live. That is great. Not seeing how many people are watching it yet, but we'll find that out later. That is wonderful that the live is actually live on YouTube. So as you're checking in, say hi, tell me where you're from. Be great to hear, to see some familiar faces, see some people that I haven't met before. So I'm really excited about this live. I'm super excited about the potential of what this can do. So one thing that I realized fairly quickly was that this COVID-19 thing has really reduced the opportunities for interpreters to meet together, for interpreters to share knowledge. We've had to do everything online, which is great, which is fine, but that's not the same as being in the same room. So I am planning something great. I'm just going to pop a message in the chat just to try and why is I almost misspell everything? Just to try and keep up with everyone. Say hi, tell me where you're from, tell me what kind of interpreter you are. It's great to hear from people there. So, here is the deal. Well, I'm going to talk about why I'm excited about interpreting in just a minute. Really pleased to be able to share on such a cool topic. But I'm excited about this live more than anything else that I've put on my channel. You see, the very fact that this is live says something amazing. It says that I've mastered a new piece of software, which is pretty cool, but it also says that I'm going to be able to deliver to you live interviews with interpreting experts. I'm not going to tell you who I've lined up so far. I've lined up 2 so far that will be coming up in the next couple of months. But what's exciting about this is that you're going to get the opportunity not just to learn from interpreting experts, but you're going to get the opportunity to ask them questions live. Here's how it's going to work. I will line up an interpreting expert ahead of time. I'm going to tell you who it is. I'm going to offer you opportunities to send questions beforehand to whoever it is. Each person will be revealed as things go on. But also, and arguably more importantly, you'll get to ask them questions live. The setup is really simple. They get to do a short talk. They're not allowed any slides whatsoever. No PowerPoint. Short talk to camera, giving all their excitement. They're allowed. I'm going to encourage them to use props and be creative, but they're definitely not allowed to use PowerPoint. So they'll get a short talk, maybe 10-20 minutes. Then afterwards, we're going to have a list of questions that you've already sent, and also you'll get the chance to ask them questions live. Once we've got the first few experts out the way, I've got a few more people I want to ask first, get a little run of them going. Then I'm going to throw it open to you to suggest people, and we'll see who we can get. With the Troublesome Terps podcast, if you haven't tuned in, it's incredible. And it's really amazing the the depth of knowledge that we've been able to uncover, the depth of people that we've been able to get to, and also the people who've said yes. I've been really pleased at how many people have said yes to come on the Troublesome Terps podcast. Hoping some of that goodwill spills over to this new run of Inside Interpreting. And so it's going to be a real opportunity to just share knowledge, to ask questions, to be a bit critical about what we're seeing, and what we're saying, and to ask those questions that you would normally ask, I don't know, at a conference or a seminar of some sort, and get an answer to them. So that's the exciting thing that's coming up. But now the main topic for today. Let me just do this. It's amazing how much goes on in the background that you don't realise when you're watching these things. So why I'm excited about the future of interpreting. It sounds a bit of a strange topic and a very strange thing to be talking about being excited about the future of interpreting when so many countries are just beginning to come out of lockdown and still really dealing with lockdown. Is it not insensitive to talk about the future of interpreting, and certainly to be excited about the future of interpreting, when we've all dealt with the effects of COVID-19 in one way or another, and some people have been affected in ways that they'll never fully recover from? On the one hand, it does seem a little bit strange to talk about being excited about the future when many of us are still dealing with the present. But I do think it's important to realise that this season will not last forever, and there is going to be a period of time afterwards. Something is going to happen after this. And so what are we seeing at the moment? We're seeing a crisis. Many of my colleagues have had no work during lockdown whatsoever. Others have found that their work has been curtailed, and many others have found that their work has gone remote. So there is and has been, and perhaps for a while there will be a crisis. There's also, as I alluded to earlier, a change in interpreting technology. I'm not going to use the word unprecedented because it's been used far too many times. We've seen an unprecedented use of the word unprecedented, but there has been a change in technology, and interpreters are really enjoying discussing remote interpreting of one form or another. Technology has changed the way that interpreting is delivered, or at least has given us a new way of delivering interpreting. What that means in the long run, we've still to really make up our minds about, but it's there nonetheless. I'm very aware of changes in technology because as little as a year and a half ago, if I had run this YouTube channel, I wouldn't have been able to use speech recognition to help take some of the hard work out of subtitling. You see, every video on this channel is either subtitled as when it's uploaded, so I use the automatic subtitler before I release it to you, or in the case of the lives, I'll go back a few days afterwards or whenever I manage to and put the subtitles on them. And I use Google's own YouTube automated subtitling algorithm and then tweak it because I have a Scottish accent, and so it says lots of crazy things. You wouldn't think I had a Scottish accent, would you? So technology has changed, and the technology especially available during this coronavirus crisis has really made a difference. It's really been a crisis that has been managed by technology, that people have coped using technology. And of course there has been a real threat to people's income. Many people have seen their income drop off a cliff. Many people have seen their income increase sometimes, but everyone's income has been affected in some way or other by COVID-19. And they're the negatives, and they're the things that we have to be aware of and we have to always be sensitive about. But if we concentrate too much on them, we might miss some other things that are going on too. As well as thinking about the crisis, I'm very aware of the creativity that I have seen. I've seen people look after each other in very creative ways. I've seen people send messages to each other in very creative ways. I've seen some amazing interpreters be creative about how they market their business, about how they deliver interpreting. There has been immense creativity during this time too. That creativity also means that people have managed to foster new opportunities. People who might not have considered interpreting before are now realising that it's available seemingly at the touch of a button. Whether that's a good thing or not is something else, but it's certainly an opportunity for interpreting to make a difference in ways it hasn't done before, to reach people that it hasn't reached before. And lastly, I've been hopeful and been pleased at the level of integration. What do I mean by integration? Well, for too long, and there's a video on this in this channel, and I'll be coming back to the subject very soon. For too long, interpreting has been separated into component parts. We've had the conference interpreters in one place, and the sign language interpreters in another, and the medical interpreters in one place, and the court interpreters in the other, and we've kind of sat in our own little corners, and even if we talk to each other and work together, our professional lives have been quite separate, almost by design. And yet, I'm seeing during this period that is beginning to crumble, as it should do. I disagree completely with the view that says that we need to make sure that conference interpreting is separate from business interpreting, or we need to be careful that we're speaking about this kind of interpreting and not that kind. To me, that's not helpful thinking. I understand the political and sometimes practical reasons for it, but I think we get much better interpreting. I think we get much better lobbying. I think we get much better results when we can speak as interpreters generally. Put a like in the comments, drop a comment in to tell me what you think of that. But I think we need to stop thinking about our interpreting as being a myriad of different professions and start saying we are interpreters. That's who we are. That's what we do. And I'm seeing more integrated thinking because, some medical interpreters are used to doing video remote interpreting. And so for them, this isn't that unusual. Very few conference interpreters were used to doing remote simultaneous interpreting on a regular basis, and so partly we can be learning from the medical interpreters and the education interpreters who've been using remote technologies for a long time. There's a greater integration of interpreting. And I foresee the day when our current categories and settings become far less relevant than they are now. That's in an upcoming video. But what do we do about creativity, opportunities and integration? Well, let's begin with the idea that creativity starts with the facts of where you are now. Creativity doesn't just explode out of your head. Creativity starts with facts, the very facts that we've been talking about, that there is a crisis, that technology is changing, that incomes are being challenged. And then you have the facts that for many people work is hard to find and family requirements are pulling them in different directions anyway. It's very hard to do 8 hours of remote simultaneous interpreting or 100 hours of practice when you have 4 children to look after. Many interpreters face the twin tensions of keeping a roof over their heads and not wanting to disappoint or let down or make people think that they're dropping standards. We forget how important peer pressure is in interpreting, and I think that we've been unfair during this crisis. I think we need to recognise that for many interpreters there is a need to keep a roof over your head. And many more experienced interpreters who may have built up substantial savings occasionally drift into the don't do remote simultaneous at all because it's not good enough, blah blah blah. And I understand those reasons perfectly and I completely understand the concerns. But if we're asking our colleagues to choose between the standards of a profession and feeding their children, we're asking them to make the wrong choice. We're asking them to either be faithful to their work or be faithful to their family, and that simply is not fair. And we need to stop it right now. But anyway, creativity starts with facts. We don't know when in-person interpreting will be back, and we can't and should not put a date on it because things will change. We don't know if there's going to be a second wave of cases. We do know that many companies who aren't interpreting companies are eager for it to come back. They have conferences they want to put on, hotels want to fill rooms. Interpreting is big business for other sectors too, and so they want in-person interpreting to come back. We can work with them to be sensible together to do what we can. Traditional routes to work are becoming tricky since the large organisations like the EU and UN probably have far fewer requirements right now, And if we relied on kind of networking to get work, that might not be working so well. But we do have more time at home. But we do have more internet time than we probably have. We have far less travel time. So creativity for me begins with the facts and says, what do you have? We have a crisis, we have problems with income, we have possibilities with technologies, but we have people who really want interpreting. We have interpreting now available in ways that it wasn't ever before, possibly more affordable for more people than it wasn't before, even if interpreters increase their rates. Let's be creative with what's actually in front of us. What can we do with what we have, with perhaps the extra time, certainly the extra time on the internet, within the constraints that we have? What can we physically do? What's the right thing to do? What can we achieve? And that makes me excited already that we have a place where we're on the verge of we've had a huge change in interpreting, we're probably on the verge of an even bigger one coming, and we can be creative. We can think through these challenges, we can work towards making things work, and we can find new ways of getting work. We can find new potential clients who perhaps wouldn't even have gone near interpreting before because it was far too expensive. Instead of seeing problems, what opportunities do we see? Two of my esteemed colleagues, Josh and Alex from Tech Forward, have been amazing. Tech Forward have put on so many webinars. It's unbelievable, and they're schooling the interpreting profession as to how to use technology, and that is fantastic. Josh and Alex, if you're listening, give us a shout out, put your website in the chat box, but Tech Forward are incredible. We've seen an explosion in online trading. I'm thinking of people like Mahail Matwali and others who've rolled out so much new online training. It's amazing. The BP20 conference became a massive online conference. Interpreting is now reaching people that it could never reach before because they were perhaps too far from a conference centre or couldn't afford to pull people in with travel, or travel was difficult. Interpreting has extended its reach. There are huge opportunities. Businesses exporting that weren't exporting before. I heard about one of them myself yesterday. Massive opportunities. So what can we do? I'm excited that we're sitting on the edge of some of the greatest opportunities that interpreting has ever seen. This is amazing. Now, to understand what's happening, and I just want to check again that the feed is working. Just to check this feed is working. Yes, it's working, and we've got 4 people watching. If you're watching, say something in the chat box. Say hello. Throw a comment at me. I would love to see some comments to respond to. Say where you are, where you're from, what kind of interpreter you are. But anyway, to understand what is going on in interpreting, we need a bit of history. And I found out a bit of history at the conference to celebrate 100 years of conference interpreting, which took place in Geneva in September. I flew there. I flew. Actually, sorry, I think it was November. End of last year, there's a conference in Geneva to celebrate 100 years of conference interpreting, and I went. I travelled, left my country and went there. That's astounding to think of now. But we heard there from historians of interpreting who told us that when simultaneous interpreting was first rolled out, the established interpreters did not like it at all. Ooh. They saw it as a challenge to their professionalism. They thought the interpreters were going to be made invisible. Haven't we heard all this before? But the very technology that many of the interpreters were resisting was a technology that enabled modern conference interpreting to be rolled out outside of the big international organisations like the UN, NATO and the EU. That technology changed the way interpreting was delivered and made it more attractive to more people. It led to the growth of interpreting at commercial conferences. The professionalisation of conference interpreting, which followed around the same time, ended up leading to the professionalisation of other forms of interpreting too. Now that in itself is an interesting story. Hi there, hello, I can't pronounce your name, but hi from Turkey. Great to see someone from Turkey. Turkey produces some incredible interpreting geniuses. But the professionalisation of conference interpreting allowed other forms of interpreting to professionalise too, finding their own ways of doing it and sometimes challenging norms, but that's fine. So the challenge to interpreting practice actually led to an explosion of opportunities for interpreting. That's exactly what's happening now. Some of the challenges that we're seeing are leading to explosions in opportunities for interpreting. So, what is the opportunity in the challenge that we're seeing? Hey, Liz is there and Dolores is there. Hi to both of you. And I want you, right, rather than me give you the answer, I want everyone who said hi in the chat, I want to challenge you. We've talked about the challenges of the crisis, of the technology that we're not quite sure how to deal with, of the change in income, in income arguably for most interpreters. I would like those of you who are in the chat box, to those of you who are watching, to explain to me what opportunities you see in the challenges that we have. I've talked about the explosion of online training, the extended reach. What are the opportunities for you? What are you seeing now that you can do? Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple of seconds just while I change the size of a window on here. Sorry that you actually see my mouse. It's something that I can't quite avoid yet. So what opportunities do you see? While you are all chatting in there, I just want to remind you that it's possible to support this channel in various ways. Obviously, sharing videos and telling people about it is really important. Subscribing, hitting the bell, yes. But also at the very top of the chat box, you should see a link to the Patreon. If you feel that you can, I would be very glad of your support. I'll probably be adding a new, cheaper support thing. I've just pasted the link back in case you missed it. Yes, that's a great idea, Liz. Yes, Liz Essery's just said in the chat. Liz Essery, who's fantastic, one of the people whose work I respect incredibly, has said, they need help organising to get meetings and workshops online, and that's a billable service. Yes, I said in my second book that every interpreter needs to become a consultant interpreter. Yes, 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 yes. I was at an online meeting for businesses yesterday and I heard about this guy talking about how his business was exporting to more countries than ever before. Immediately, I sent him a LinkedIn message and sent him an email saying, if you need help with that, I can set up the interpreters because I know enough about exporting to know what's likely to happen next. So, the opportunity and the challenge, as Liz said, absolutely, we can and should be helping to get meetings online, billing for it. Decide on what your consulting rate is. Funnily enough, I've got a job that I'll be hearing back about at the end of June where they wanted some interpreters who are very hard to find. They wanted some medical conference interpreters, and trust me, those people, they not easy to find in certain languages. And my consulting rate for that was just a percentage of the fees of the interpreter. So the interpreters charge their normal fee, they get their normal fee, and I just put a percentage on top. And that covers the time it takes me to find the right interpreters, check with the right people, check with the equipment suppliers, and so on. And we also have Dolores saying that she's had more time to read 1,000 books that are now available. Yes, there's a really good book available called Interpreters versus Machines. I wrote it. Please feel free to buy it. By the way, there may be a short delay at the moment because the first print run has finished, and I believe there's a short delay in the second print run coming out. So yes, taking online courses is great, giving online courses is great, and if you missed the beginning of this, I want to remind you that at the beginning of this live, I said that from the next few Inside Interpreting videos will not just be me talking. I am lining up some leading interpreting experts, and the format will be really, really simple. They get 10 to 20 minutes to do a talk with no PowerPoint slides. It's a PowerPoint free setup. And then after that, it's all the time, and I will put them to that expert. The first two I am super excited about. There's going to be a mix of amazing researchers, inspiring practitioners, people who do both. Many people do both. I'm going to try and cover as much of the world as I can, but there are some people who I really want to get on. If you want a flavour of the way the interviews go, there are 3 interviews in the Inside Interpreting channel. Once his live is over, go to videos. There's a fantastic video with Ebru Dediker. There's a video with a sales expert who was amazing. Dilys Guyana, sales expert, who's brilliant. And I think there's a third one. If there isn't a third one, there will be soon, because I'll be doing more. So, what's the opportunity and the challenge? We've had some great answers so far. I would say think about what we can do with greater flexibility in the way that we provide interpreting. There's nothing wrong with the same interpreter interpreting remotely for the initial meeting, then in person for the negotiation, and then in person again for the conference at which the deal is announced. Or, if you prefer, having a consultant interpreter who manages the process, and suddenly they know who to slot in at which point. Yes, exactly. Fantastic from Lizzie. It seems like a dream, but every client I've worked with in the last couple of months has said some version of, I never knew that meeting online could be even better in some ways than on site. Yes, in some ways it is. Anyone who's been to a sweaty conference. But yes, we should be able to procure or provide the interpreting that clients need at different points in the journey. There has never been a better time to learn about how businesses function and to not have one model of how you charge, but have several. I'm going to start rolling out more than one model. Said something controversial. Okay, what can we do with greater flexibility and extended reach? Now there's nothing stopping an interpreter in the UK interpreting at a conference somewhere else. You have to be careful with that. You don't want to disadvantage the local interpreters. But if it's a client that you work with and they want you, why should you have to fly? There's not always a case for you flying. Sometimes it is. My rule is, if everyone else is in the room, the interpreter should be in the room. If everyone's separate, then the interpreter is going to be separate. It's a really simple rule. Yes, demand for remote video interpreting is going to increase massively. I don't do a lot of it. I have 4 young children. I've signed up for the services, but I have to be careful because I have 4 young children. This is a noise cancelling mic for a reason. So, where can we go where we haven't gone before? This is an interesting question because as a conference interpreter, most of my career has been based on interpreting being a prestige, super expensive service. I recently sent a quote and I went, that's a lot of money. It's a good deal, but it's still a lot of money. Now, if a client is using video remote interpreting or remote simultaneous interpreting, the interpreters can charge the same, if not more. Possibly they should be charging more. And yet the overall bill is still lower because you don't have equipment fees, you don't have travel, you don't have accommodation, and so on. So there are clients who couldn't previously afford interpreting who can now afford it. They might be good potential clients to talk to. And here's something more interesting. Sarah Hickey of Nimdzi and Troublesome Terps, who's the 4th Troublesome Terps co-host, she is amazing, pointed out in Geneva last year, I need to remember which month that was, I will put it in the subtitles after. Sarah Hickey pointed out last year in Geneva that in many cases interpreting is done for language access. And so you have this thing where I'm used to a world in which interpreting is a prestige service, and she's talking about interpreting in terms of language access. Why should the two be separate? Why should we not be happy with a world where, for example, someone goes to a library in a foreign country and there's an automated interpreting speech translation system that the librarian can use to help them find out that the book they're looking for is actually already being borrowed, or it's on the 4th floor, or having an automated speech translation system that helps people find their way around foreign cities. Wonderful. That's not robbing us of anything. No one is currently paying any interpreter to say that turn left is this in Spanish or this in Dutch. No professional interpreter ever gets paid to do that. So then you get interpreting in that form. Then you might get interpreting when people go to the doctor and need a checkup, or when someone has an accident and they need to give their details and so on. There's different use cases for interpreting, both in terms of language access and in terms of business growth. If we can find a way of connecting it all together where we recognise that it's all interpreting and that human interpreting has places where it's best and automated speech translation has places where it's best, then interpreting becomes ubiquitous. I borrowed the word ubiquitous from Piotr Blumczynski, who wrote a book called Ubiquitous Translation. But when interpreting becomes something that people get used to accessing, it becomes something they get used to buying. If it becomes something they get used to buying, then you start getting different price points, different levels of prestige, and so on. Just like with mobile phones. I don't have an iPhone. I have a Motorola. But if you buy a smartphone, you can buy cheap ones, you can buy expensive ones, you can buy fair trade ones, you can buy whatever you want. It's going to become the same with interpreting, and we will need to choose where our price points are going to be and what clients we're trying to serve. That's just going to. But what can we do in a world where interpreting becomes ubiquitous? I'm excited about that idea because suddenly interpreting and foreign languages become ubiquitous. People get used to it. And if we can start explaining to people the difference between automated speech translation and human interpreting and what they're used for, that becomes super exciting. I want to end with this. Interpreting is on the verge of an unprecedented explosion. Interpreting is going to explode in ways that we haven't seen before. Demand is going to increase in ways that we haven't foreseen. It's up to us to position ourselves and to position interpreting to get ready for it. Now, thank you all for being here. I just want to say that this live video will be possibly slightly edited in, but will be transferred to the main channel in the next week or so. It will be subtitled for people who are hard of hearing or just want to watch on their phone while they're doing something else. Thank you very much for attending. I can't give you a live link to this straight away, but it will come on the main channel soon. Thank you, Dolores. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, everyone who's tuned in. I hope you've had a great time. I hope I've really got you excited about the future of interpreting. Thank you very much, and see you very soon. I'll be announcing very soon the very first live interview on this. Thank you very much.